All right, Warriors of National Guard recruiting. This Command Sergeant Major retired Dave Eustace with Training Tuesday podcast, and we have Sergeant First Class Yereb from the great state of South Carolina here, who this past year assessed the most soldiers into the National Guard. So we want to talk about how we got that done. Before we do that, Sergeant, why don't you just break down your National Guard story and how you got to where you're at right now in recruiting?
Absolutely. So I got in just a little over 15 years ago in September of 07. I was actually a freshman here at the Citadel at the time. Always knew I wanted to serve because of 9/11. So it's kind of funny being back on campus now when I'm recruiting people. You know, a lot of these people weren't even born on 9/11. So that's kind of unique and funny to me.
Yeah.
But I was a business major while I was here at the Citadel. Always wanted to go into sales. When I graduated, I just did the traditional M-Day route, did sales for a while, was pretty good at some of the different sales jobs that I had. And then I just kind of realized, hey, I love the military. I love doing this all the time. I'm good at sales. Why do we let's just do it full time? It just made complete sense. And then the NCO I see at the time, who's just retiring now, I met him just on the street and I was like, I want to work for that guy. So here I am. So
Good deal. And so you've been recruiting for how long?
A little over 5 years now. Yep.
And were you always an on-campus recruiter?
So I started off campus for my first 3 full years of recruiting, and then just the last 2 have been on campus.
Okay. And I'm pretty sure we met a couple years back when you were just getting started. I think you had like Wando High School or something like that over there.
I did. Yeah, I was actually struggling, so I reached out to you at the time, and you gave me some good advice, and I actually wound up crushing mission that year, and I've actually made mission every single year as a recruiter. But I think that just goes to show you should always reach out to some of the experts and just always try to do whatever you can to think outside the box, and maybe even just try to learn some new techniques. So that's what I've done every year, whether I've had a good year or a bad year. I try to reach out to other people.
Well, that's kind of an interesting point because a lot of recruiters, they understand it when they get into the job that it's a difficult job. Mm-hmm. But they're shocked when it's difficult.
Right.
You know, and act as if no one else has experienced it, when in truth, everybody else has experienced it, especially people like you. Now you got 5 years under your belt. Mm-hmm. I'm sure a lot of the younger recruiters in your organization, you know, could benefit from just hearing from you. A lot of times they don't reach out, but there will be a nugget of something that says, oh, yeah, I can do that. Or just hearing that someone else has been in this spot before doesn't make quite as bad.
That point, yeah, that's a great point that you just made, because I might get an email, I'll say maybe 2 to 3 times a year from some random person across the country, and they just see those national production lists, and they reach out to usually maybe the first top 5 or top 10 just to ask us how we're doing. But it's shocking to me that more recruiters don't ask for help, whether you're doing great or struggling, but especially this past year where it was tough for everybody across the country. I mean, I assessed a lot, but I also only made mission on the very last day of recruiting. So that's just how heavy my mission was. And no matter what, you should always be trying to find some other nugget from somebody, no matter how things are going, whether it's going great for you or terrible.
Well, you had 37 accessions this year. Mm-hmm. So how did you do that? How did you get 37 people into the Guard?
Well, I tell you what, 2 years ago, we put in at the Citadel, it was a 2-person location. We had 24 people that we put in like the first 2 weeks of October. We were crushing it and everything was great and dandy. I think as an office, we put in over 60 that year. last year, due to, the vaccine and just everything else too, stuff definitely got a lot tougher, especially on a very pro right wing campus. I only put in 6 people all of first semester, but I basically never gave up the whole entire time, knowing that I was 31 down, and I basically only had 3 more months to recruit because cadets are from all over the country. They're not here at all over the summer, so I really can't recruit them very well or very hard over the summer. So I really had to start pushing it. And then I rolled another 0 in January. Most of the stuff that my issues were Genesis and just everything else that you hear across the board from all the other recruiters. And then I had so many med reads submitted that I finally had the dam break in March. I was able to put in, I think, 8 or 9 in March alone. And then I was able to have a similar month in April. And then I put a few in May. And that really kind of set me up to, even though I was still way behind mission, at least I was kind of within striking distance. And I think at the end of the day, the secret sauce to that is just the fact that I just never gave up. Our state had a production report out, and they did it by mission percentage back in April. And I think I was like 20 down from mission, maybe 19 down from mission. But I have never not made mission as a military recruiter, and I wasn't going to accept that. Being in team meetings, I know a lot of fellow recruiters in South Carolina, and hearing it from all over the country as well. I heard nothing but excuses, and I'm just not the type of person to ever make excuses. So for anyone listening, no matter how far down you are on mission, no matter what time of year it is, just don't give up. And then I had to shove in 12 in the last 6 weeks, basically just when cadets got back on campus, just for me to be able to make mission. And fortunately with that, I was able to be that top producer in the country.
Well, when you're managing that many people in a given month, 8 to 12 people in a month, what are some things that you did to just keep your thumb on people and keep track of where they needed to be, when they needed to be there, their paperwork, all of that? What was your technique for organizing all that?
So when my wife listens to this podcast, she's going to laugh pretty hard, because a lot of times my personal life, I might forget that we have an event going on sometimes, but I am incredibly organized at my office. Every single meeting I have, or every single to-do list that I have to do for that day, is on my desk calendar. And oftentimes I might get an email during off hours, and what I have to do is I have to put a note into my phone to remind myself when I get to my office, then to put that on my desk calendar. Because I have so many things going on recruiting wise, and then there's extra things you have to deal with at the Citadel or any campus place that you're at, because then you have to deal with the ROTC department that whole entire time too. I mean, once you put somebody in at the Citadel or any other campus, you are then basically taking care of them for the next 4 years. So it's a lot harder, and a lot time management's a lot more important at a campus, because it's not like you're just sending them off to basic training and AIT, then you never see them again, which is a terrible practice to do anyways if you're a street recruiter, but I see that time and time again. But to me, it's making sure that I have everything in my folder system all good to go, and then just making sure that everything's on my desk calendar.
Well, you went to the Citadel, but I know a lot of people out there in recruiting were like, well, if I was an on-campus recruiter, I'd rate a 50. So what are some of the things, because you've been just a regular production recruiter as well, what would you say the differences are of being on campus and being, having a traditional office with high schools?
I think, especially in the past year, you still have to get out and talk to people. People just don't magically come in and just walk into your door. I mean, and people might say, oh, at the Citadel or any, campus, they might just come walking in, but I still have to show up my face up to all of the ROTC labs. I'll still be in classes. I will go to FTXs for drill weekends. I will do anything I can to get my face out there. And then, a lot of times you just have to think outside the box with no matter what the circumstance is. So, for example, yesterday and the day before, I spent about 3 to 4 hours just trying to put a couple of people in who aren't U.S. citizens, but they have, I-551 cards and they're permanent residents. So I had to pull up not only all the National Guard regulations, but I also pulled up every single from Cadet Command. So what was tricky with that is you can be in ROTC as a permanent resident, but you can't contract at all at any point. But also all of the other regulations aren't very clear on, can you still enlist someone as an 09 Romeo? Because traditionally it used to be you'd have to go to basic training in AIT by the time you would get your citizenship. So then I had to then reach out to all the subject matter experts in New York and everyone else who deals with the brand new naturalization process that just came out a couple months ago to make sure that we could put these people in. So at the end of the day, 4 hours later, I found out that, you can't enlist an 09 Romeo 10 SMP cadet as a permanent resident, because if all goes well, they should be able to get their naturalization paperwork through and everything approved within 6 months. At the end of the day, you just can't be afraid to do the extra legwork, whether it's going to classes and getting your face out there or doing all those extra calls or dealing with a million med reads. So you just have to be ruthless in every single thing you do.
Well, it's interesting. Something you said really kind of clicked with me because I'm just a believer in it. Is I know a lot of people think, well, our number one benefit's college, and you're out of college, so fish in a barrel. But that's really not the case unless you have a presence all of the time.
Yep.
And your population is different.
Yep.
Especially, at the Citadel, it's not cheap to go there, as you know. But the belief system is, it would be like South Carolina's Harvard.
Mm-hmm. Pretty much. Yeah.
I'm making connections for the rest of my life. I'm going to get this degree.
Right.
And kind of what you're offering to many of those individuals might be perceived as a distraction from the plan.
Right.
And because I live in the community too, I've just observed this it's probably one of the rare college campuses where the parents are still very involved.
That is very true. And it's Parents Weekend this weekend, so I had to shut the door to my office to make sure that none of my cadets or parents just happened to walk in today. So you're absolutely right. Every single parent will be here, unlike another college, especially if you're a freshman.
Yeah. And where I live, I got some parents in here that their daughter is a cadet or a student at the Citadel. So it's like a really big deal.
Well, I need her contact information because it sounds like I need to be doing some prospecting.
Yeah, we have talked about it. So with that presence on campus, I'm sure there's many things that you're not super interested in as an individual that you got to show up for that are happening on campus. So, kind of speak to that a little bit of the regular presence that is necessary on stuff that you probably normally just wouldn't do.
Well, I guess FTXs or labs in general might not be something that I really want to do. Labs are fine because they're on campus, but to go off campus to an FTX, just to show face, that usually takes a lot more effort because generally they will be up at Fort Jackson. And that takes me away from everything that I have to do back on campus as well. So anytime you make a trip like that, that just takes you, out of the fight, so to speak, on campus for an entire day. But when you do certain things to be in the community or market yourself, you just have to look at it as, I'll get that ROI, return on investment, later on. Might not be today because I have to drive 4 hours round trip, or whatever deal is, but you just got to make believe that in a couple weeks, a couple months, those cadets that you talk to, they might not have ever joined, who happen to be in Army ROTC, but then they saw you and there weren't any other recruiters there. And, they start to trust you and work with you.
Well, and that regular contact is interesting. I think more so significant now is the first no you get, it's not a no forever. No. It's a no right now. And especially for on-campus recruiters, I would imagine that's kind of experience. They need repetition and seeing you to get comfortable with you so they can actually hear what you have to say. Do you find
right? And that is the most interesting point that I've probably ever heard you say. I love that, because when I was a financial advisor on the civilian side, it's a proven fact that it might take up to 3 years to get someone. So, and a lot of times, if you just were organized, about 25 to 33% of people that you come in contact, they'll work with you within 3 years, as long as you're not annoying or anything, as long as you just keep in contact with them and then just establish that trust. But it's the same thing with the Guard. And it was absolutely the same thing for me when I was at Wando High School. So what I always did, I always kept an Excel spreadsheet of every single person who fell off, as long as they were still qualified or, whatever the deal is. And I would still contact them every 5 to 6 months, just saying, hey, just reaching out, or, how did your sports season go? Or, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Even after they graduated high school. And even though I was behind mission right when the pandemic started in March of 2020, I was able to shove in, I think it was 5 people in a 2-month time span. And then I was able to get a couple ROTC scholarships and put them in a couple weeks later after that. So I was able to essentially finish mission early during the pandemic, just because of my organization, just kind of keeping, track and on top of all that. And I do the same thing on campus. I keep a Microsoft Word document with every single person that ever comes to me. And then, once they enlist, I just take them off that. So I have a very long Microsoft Word document of about 100 names of someone that I've been in contact at some point, whether it's email or in person.
Well, for people listening or watching this, that for right now, this time of year is super significant. Mm-hmm. You think about the friend group or the orbit of people that you talked to at a high school. Well, all their friends are off to college now if they didn't go to college.
Yep.
And they decided to get a job or, stay at home, whatever. It's about this time where they're saying, well, is this what I'm going to be doing?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And they might be super open to hearing about the National Guard again, what that is all about. They're in a job that's probably not a forever job, and just doing that one administrative thing and just keeping track of those individuals can turn into enlistments. And I think this is a great time of year when their friends have been away for some weeks now, and they're still doing the same thing.
Absolutely.
So you're able to make mission as a high school recruiter, on-campus recruiter, the most amount of the sessions this past year. What do you think your secret sauce is to be a mission-making recruiter for 5 years and to have the most sessions this year?
Being disciplined, in the sense that I am a person of habits. I go to the gym the same time every single day. I try to leave the office the same time every single day. I just keep my left and my right limits pretty much similar all the time. And I feel like I'm in a good orbit when I'm doing that. Staying organized, and then just always being willing to talk about the Guard, no matter who it's with. I will go to a grocery store, even if it's not in my AO, and I will find out who the recruiter is for that area, and I will pass off enlistments. That just, you have to be relentless with everything you do.
Well, I really like that first part. The discipline of this is how I'm going to operate every day. it makes a huge difference. You know,
Mhm.
when you're disciplined and you show up at the same time every day with your uniform on and ready to go. And when you see someone that is under 40 and not fat, you're probably going to talk to them.
Yep,
And
absolutely.
that discipline turns into a behavior.
Mhm.
And then those behaviors turn into an attitude of, I'm not going to be broken up when they're not interested right now because you have so many volume of people that you've talked to, that you'll get enough yeses.
Absolutely.
You'll get enough yeses that will cause you to not count the no's.
Yep.
That's how it works.
And that's the best way to explain to either brand new recruiters or recruiters who are starting in a new AO. You might not have the best funnel for your first couple of months, but if you stay organized and you just keep following up with them, eventually you're going to make it big. It was the same thing on the sales side on my civilian career as well. I mean, you're not going to get yes every single time. And I mean, how often do either hot leads or someone you meet out somewhere else, I mean, even if they show a little bit of interest, immediately, that doesn't mean that, they're immediately willing to join, but you might at least have their ear early on. So that's a great point.
Well, I just kind of know from knowing you for a little bit of time and seeing that, on Instagram, something that you seem to have a pretty good work-life balance.
Mm-hmm.
That you've done some traveling and whatnot.
Yep.
Got a little family going. So what is it that you do to ensure that you are able to have that balance, to keep the home front happy and to keep the boss happy in recruiting?
Well, the boss at home also has to be happy. I promise you that. You got to keep the boss at home happy. And I'm definitely fortunate to have a great wife and a great baby. Making sure that you're present at the house, making sure that you sit down, you do dinner, you do all the church activities, you pray as a family, making sure that your wife is as happy too, and giving her a break from my daughter whenever she can get a chance so she can kind of decompress as well. We have a great system down, and it depends on who your significant other is, but we give each other alone time as well. And we just, we're able to jive, and I'm just definitely blessed to have the wife and family that I do, which also reminds me that discipline part definitely came in handy when I had a newborn and I had a mission of 37. So that was the only way I could have made it.
Well, what it sounds to me like too is the communication piece on the home front. Like when you're processing 12 people in a month, probably the wife has given up a little bit of what was pre-organized.
Yeah, right? And God bless my wife. I also finished my master's up in April, so that capstone project that was 80 pages that she supported me through the whole entire time, that was big. So she's definitely pretty outstanding.
Well, you had a terrific year, and a lot of people didn't in 22. The good news is 22 is behind us, so we got a new opportunity right now. So for some of those recruiters out there that didn't have a great year, and are looking at the start of this year, or new recruiters, what advice would you give them about having more success in this year and moving forward to have a successful career in recruiting?
A couple of things. I would say, one, don't stress the little stuff. Don't get upset or bogged down with some of those no's, which you kind of touched on a little bit earlier. But stay disciplined and talk to every single person about the guard. You're in a sales position. You should be going out there to schools and having a heavy presence there. It doesn't matter whether it's high school or college, but you need to be the go-to recruiter there. And that's not only with the kids, but that's also with the staff and administration. For me, it might be college sports coaches and some of the registrar office and whatnot. High school, you need to get with your guidance counselor office, ROTC, and it doesn't matter whether it's an Air Force ROTC or a Navy ROTC at the high school level or not. They're interested in the military. So you need to just make sure that you are present to every single thing you can be. And don't ever look at anything as a waste of time. But definitely at the end of the day, do not make excuses, because you can do it. And there were people that made mission this year. So I promise you, you stay disciplined. And if you want this, you can do it.
Well, that's good stuff. I really appreciate you doing this. And I think people can benefit from having a listen to this and taking some of your advice. Be disciplined, don't make excuses, talk to as many people as possible. You can't go wrong with those things. So I know you'll tear it up again this year. Thanks for doing this. And let's be the top dog again in FY23.
That's the plan. Got to build that funnel again.
Awesome.